Hi, my name is Camille Washington, and I'm here with Pedro Reyes and Bartholomew Ryan, and we're going to be talking about his exhibition here called Baby Marx. So, Pedro. Hi.
Hi.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about how Baby Marx originated before you got to the Walker, the project?
I think that it started back in 2007 just as an idea of a puppet show where you could have like these two characters, Adam Smith and Karl Marx, somehow like a comedy that you would no, I just had like a kind of a flashback because
that would look like an amazing flashback. What was that?
No, I mean in 2007 probably I had just become a parent. My daughter was like, I don't know, like 1 year or 2 years old, and I realized that a lot of the dynamics within the family are how the parents can go on working and you know, like the TV works as a kind of electric nanny that somehow like, okay, well, at some points of the day you have to put your kids in front of the TV just to go on answering emails and stuff. So that resonated to me with some ideas that I had read in Marx about alienation and or how you have to assignate certain time to certain tasks and how does that plays a role in the whole economy. And I thought that instead of, you know, like being aware of what was around for TV, for kids, it's like junk food, but like really super low quality, no? You have like those Baby Einstein series, which are like, just like, basically they make kids dumber. I mean, like honestly, there was even like a class action suit, like where like that was like a year ago, where parents were like being refound if you send your Baby Einstein DVDs back to Disney, because, you know, like somebody said, well, this is actually making kids dumber. And I think that, you know, like I basically believe that everything that an adult can understand, a kid will understand too. If you think of the days where you were in school, that was the last time that you actually pay any attention to how chemistry or physics work. You know, like I mean, like so there is a way that society is done, like organized in a way that kids are sent are given like this kind of junk material, to like really total nonsense. So I thought to myself, well, you know, like if you can package all that nonsense and feed like kids' minds with nonsense, you can, you know, like that also means that if you have like the history of philosophy packaged and like given to people of any age, they will actually absorb it and make it part of their system. So I still believe that was like a very early idea, even before the conception of the project. And then when the opportunity came, I said, well, let's try it.
Let's try what?
Let's try make a TV program which has that historical figures like main philosophers or historical characters who could incarnate part of what they did in reality, and turn that into a story.
So you first proposed this for a project in London, I believe in 2007.
Yes.
And they said that kind of Karl Marx is sort of pretty irrelevant at the moment.
Yeah.
And then what happened with Yokohama?
Well, I think that probably Japan is one of the countries which may be least interested in Marxism. But, however, if they made Heidi and these kind of stories that had nothing to do with their own story, they also found that Marx was in, like, if it had been interesting elsewhere, maybe it was like a way for them to do it. I mean, it's not exactly that, but you know, like working with Akiko Miyake for like preparing a piece for the Yokohama Triennale was like a very good opportunity, because in Japan you have this tradition of puppeteering, which is very connected with the way how toys, like craft toys, are made. And for instance, you have like some figures done in the wheel, and that very abstract shapes are very close to the modernist tradition of the Bauhaus and how to build a character with just like simple geometrical shapes. So even if the, you know, like if the character design, I think that the most important phase of development of the project in Japan was the character design and the puppet design, the puppet making. And that was precisely that register where craft and modern art converge. That was really interesting to do in working with Takumi Ota, the puppet maker.
And so can you speak a little bit about the transition from working in Japan to working with the Japanese puppeteers in Mexico City on the pilot?
Yes. We had to work on the basis of that they don't speak English. And I had to learn a little bit of Japanese and then direct with the help of an interpreter. So we had like a kind of audio file, and they would perform like hearing these voices that they didn't understood. So it was like a challenge, but they're like very precise and very skilled puppeteers. So we managed to shoot that. Although I must say that now working here in the Walker is very liberating to have that direct spontaneity that comes from the puppeteers themselves. And they are making up their lines, so not everything has to be like so scripted as before.
So for the pilot, so you showed a teaser at Yokohama with some of the puppets, and then for the pilot you wrote a script with some friends that you filmed. And can you talk about well, why a television pilot and what you thought would happen to the pilot, and then its kind of life after you made it?
I think that what is important is to do things. You know, like we have like this kind of joke that we have had like about like speed protects you. The thing is
it's
that
the motto of
yes,
the exhibition.
I don't have any experience in like the film industry and how sales and I feel even more far from the TV thing. So, but when you don't have any knowledge of one field, like you just like do it, and once you have done it, then you know how it works. So actually, like the first time that I been in a set, in a film set, was when, you know, like my first day of shooting as a director. So, which is like a total suicide. But then, you know, like you just like learn, and now I see that, I mean, I have a kind of a principle, which is that you should do first and then theorize after. So you, for instance, I can see that has been like super successful in the Walker Art Center, like that process, because working with the puppeteers, we have been able to do some teamwork on just like having like a kind of a idea to build the, like, for, okay, well, today we're gonna do this scene, and then, you know, like you do a number of improvisations, and it's like a simultaneous script writing. You find like good moments, and then you select those moments, and then you edit them together, and that's how you come up with really funny lines. So if you had to, if you wanted, you know, like before I was working more like, oh, we need to find the writers, and, you know, like I have like this kind of very
hierarchical, maybe?
Yeah, or like a sequential ensemble, like a kind of a sequential process. And now I think that the biggest achievement of these last days has been for us to feel that we can, you know, like that this is like, that we have come up with stuff that we wouldn't have found if we wanted to have things scripted and write it down before doing this. So I think that for like that's an example of what I am talking about doing first, and then, you know, like, so you have to just like do the things, and then sometimes you fail, and you fail, like the first like development with the, like, for instance, working with the Japanese puppeteers, what we did was like a whole kind of environment. So that development was like the kind of visual appeal of the project. And now, but there was only up to what, to some point that was possible to happen, you know, like, because of the language barrier. Now that we have that phase ready, I think that we have found what was the missing element, which was the comedy factor. And I am so excited about this, you know, like I'm so happy that we work this way, and that, you know, like the Walker was like really like the laboratory where that serendipitous element was found, because now I feel much more confident that that the project has like real like potential to be out there, you know, like I think that it was good to just like move on and things like as Joseph Boy said, like materials take shape by itself. Something that, you know, like you just like do the stuff, and then, yeah.
Camille and I could talk slightly about the kind of curatorial process that got us here today, and it's certainly been like a really interesting and kind of convoluted one that always has sort of felt like it's actually making sense, you know. But we've had collectively as a group sort of several ideas for what this exhibition would be. And each time we would sort of meet a kind of a conceptual or material roadblock, and then kind of shift direction, until, I think we're at a space now that we were always heading towards, but where we've really managed to break open the kind of confines of the pilot project, which was, like you say, super naturalistic, creating a set, creating all of that sort of illusionistic sort of quality. And now we have something where you have these hugely creative puppeteers, yourself, the Walker campus, a very kind of like guerrilla sort of production team that just sort of moves around and shoots wherever they want to. Myself and Camille have to react and like get the institution on board. And it's just become this very organic, sort of free-flowing project, which is what I think we wanted to happen. We just didn't know how we were going to get there.
Yeah.
Right, and when we started, it was still really, when we were talking last year, when we first started thinking about Baby Marx here at the Walker, it was really about continuing to develop the pilot. Like, we started talking about the pilot and rewriting the pilot, but in kind of having our meetings with, for example, like the writers in New York, that did shift us, but allowed the freedom that you've experienced now with the actual production, which is really great, just as curators, to be able to maybe just allow that and facilitate that. That's been really rewarding, I think.
And that's been a learning curve, I think, for us and the institution to set up a structure that's loose enough to adapt to your developing ideas, but that can still deliver, a show on Thursday, which is tomorrow, which I think we're going to.
It's happening. It's happening.
But could you talk about that, Pedro? Like, because Camille, there was at one stage where we were going to bring in these American writers, like Adult Swim, Cartoon Network, and have them workshop the script here in the first days of the exhibition for a pilot that we would then focus group in the galleries. Yeah. But you, myself, and Camille visited some writers in New York, and can you talk about that meeting and then what came out of that for you? Because I felt like that led to a real change of direction in the project.
Yes, I think that, the example of, a little bit as curators, you have achieved something that a producer wouldn't have been able to do, which is that, I'm talking about like the normal way of what are the expectations of a product of, let's say, a TV show or something, which is that, I think that contemporary art and the relationship between the artist and the curator is one where you have like that space for vagueness, for like a kind of a like speculation and like not knowing quite what is gonna be like. And for instance, the museum environment and like the exhibition making is something where that mental space, we live in that, like in that space, but that's a privilege that often doesn't exist out there. And that's largely the cause why you have all these very bad movies made every year, because there's so much constraints about like what are the expectations for how much money this movie is gonna do in this first weekend, and TV shows are largely a means only to sell ads, and there's like a set of constraints that don't exist in like the like the exhibition environment, which I think that that visit that we made to New York to interview writers, etc., was very enlightening, because we realized that it was reassuring in a way that the solution wouldn't be outside, that you have to make what you want to do, or just like do it and then figure out yourself. And I am really grateful for that kind of patience. That you know, like oh well, we don't know exactly how this is going to turn out, etc. Like so this. For instance, like doing these capsules that are like really short and really kind of discrete in like small sketches, it's best to find that fun element in like small things, and that will eventually become part of a larger scale. So,
so you kind of we came back and none of us spoke for 2 weeks. I think we were just digesting that meeting where we pitched Baby Marx to these writers, and they threw around all these ideas, and we all kind of left sort of frazzled and a little confused. And about 2 weeks later, we talked to you, and you were like, "I want to make a documentary film."
Yeah.
So,
is that something you'd been thinking about throughout the project? Or?
I think that you know, like that the project has like there can be like different environments or like a kind of circuits. Today you not only have TV and documentary, but also the internet. So it's not only about like what will be the outlet for these two, like if festivals or film theaters. It's also about what kind of materials you want to combine. No? So for instance, tomorrow when we have the talk with Lauren Berland and Michael Hart, I think that we're going to have like very interesting material. And that's something that I'm very happy to have, which probably in the format of the TV comedy would not fit. Because even though you have like this kind of a wide range of experience, like things that can happen in a comedy program, there's like a tyranny of comedy where you cannot like make serious statements. So I want to also be free from having to be funny all the time, and also, you know, like a combine like a series of serious interviews together with the comedy sketches and see how that works. And I have no idea if it's going to work or not, but I think that's a kind of a direction that will that's a direction, that's the next experiment. Because as we found in New York, you know, like you have like, okay, well, we have these thinkers or academics that can tell you very interesting things about how the world works or how it could work, but they're not funny. And then, you know, like a little bit like the case with the writers that we met, etc. People who are like really funny, but may have like they're not acquainted with this kind of history of thought. So I don't think that you'll find someone who can fulfill like who's as complete to do all that together. It's rather something that you have to combine a number of talents and universes to have that richness. And I want to see how that works, you know, like to have like both things. I think that by the end of the show, you know, like in the following months, when we can run a test of see these serious interviews together with the comedy to see how that works. You have to reimagine the mediums. You have to try to see. I'm not sure if it's going to work, but I think it's interesting trying. Yeah.
You know, this duality that you speak about, just kind of comedy, seriousness, it also really plays out in your thinking behind bringing these two poles of economic thought together. And I wonder, is that something that you think about throughout this process, in intercutting the serious and the comedy and high-minded kind of political theory and economic theory and just straight gags and jokes? Is that how does that play out for you, and how did it play out for you in developing these characters just over time, really?
Yeah.
From where they were when you first did the pilot until now when they're being improvised with
Yes.
the puppeteers.
I think that, I don't know, if it's not, if you dissect a joke, you may come up so close that you don't, like, it's not much fun anymore. But I think that what happens is that you have, I don't know, like we were just shooting like this scene where Engels and Marx are together, and he's happy to have Marx by his side again, so they can finish the third volume of Das Kapital, but which is like a kind of a reference to that people who are unacquainted may know. But then we have like this kind of very, very stupid comment that Marx says that, well, you know, like you're like that guy that was part of WAM, that no one remembers his name because, you know, like I'm like George Michael, and you know, I got, which is like this is like something that I feel like often like almost offended or like insulted by this kind of very stupid joke. So I think that, you know, like putting something serious in a kind of a stupid context, and then something, you know, like and back again. It deconstructs the kind of categories that you often have for your thinking. So this is, I mean, like, what I think is that boredom comes where you have certain monotony. And Marxism can be very dreadful subject. So if you have like this kind of jump cuts between ideas and things that are like references to the present time, then you have like a certain diversity which makes everything like, which basically keeps your attention. No? If you have people's attention, then you can introduce all these ideas in a way which you could not do elsewhere. So you know, like I think that I like that there is jokes for people who has the references, as well as jokes for the ones who doesn't, and that dialectical process is similar to the one going on with the ideologies itself, no? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because you are, you know, as it were, embracing, I mean, this is old news in a way, but you are embracing the culture industry. You know, you're sort of like immersed in the spectacle, in this kind of process of making pieces that are like meant to have this kind of popular, broad appeal, whether it's via being viral on the internet or trying to get distribution as a television pilot or film. And I'm kind of wondering about the sort of your own ideological framework within this, like one thing we didn't mention is that even though Marx didn't feel particularly relevant in 2007 when Yokohama decided that they would help support the project. By the time Yokohama Triennial opened, there was a worldwide, sort of global economic crisis. And here we are, I guess 3 years later, the show's opening tomorrow, and we're in another period where, the US debt rating just got downgraded, and the stock market's going crazy, and nobody knows what's happening in Europe. And so we are living in a sort of a very interesting times economically. So this is a long way to get to, where is the sort of the urgency, or what are the stakes in this project for you? Or do you think that's too self-important a way of articulating it?
I want, I'm very interested in the production of change, and I don't like utopia. I want agency. I don't want to imagine how the world should be. I want to actually make and invest my time in projects that at least at a certain scale can produce change. So maybe they it depends on which project from the ones I work on, but in the case of, I mean, why I mention this is because perfect is the enemy of good. I think that it's not possible to request a radical transformation of society where we move away from capitalism, but I think that there is a very like a very exciting realm of innovation that happens where you can combine ad hoc elements from socialism into current business practices, and so I think that people that it's good for everyone to be more acquainted with socialism, to not demonize the word itself, and that socialism can be, should become something which is known for its principles, as well as other schools of thought, in a way that you can actually build a more fair society. So but it's not really important how you call it. I think that there are elements in that we need to learn, and that I am myself learning, but what is important is first to fight dogmatism of both ends, and the misuse of the terms. We need to become more elaborate on how do we use these terms, no? So if even through this kind of comedy people become more acquainted with what the language is, and they maybe become curious, etc., you'll have more people will be better equipped to have these conversations, and I think that in that sense is it's important that we don't adhere to one school of thought, because it will always be misrepresenting those ideas. You have to have like that kind of so I mean, like, yeah, the idea is basically that the very fact of having Marx and Smith as characters who are suddenly detached from the stigma, and they can have like this kind of conversation between themselves. What I think is that everyone has these kind of hypothetical conversations, no? I mean, like, you maybe don't have them incarnated as Marx and Smith, but you have a number of, a certain awareness that your own desires and your own needs are part of human nature, you know, like we all want to have savings or investments or certain wealth, and we all want like to build a much more fair society and equal society, etc. And then, but when certain decisions that we have to make every day happen, you have to make certain negotiations. And what I like about the characters is that somehow that kind of dialogue, like sharing or not sharing a cookie, is incarnated in like people who actually devoted some thought to this. So, you know, like it's a way, you know, like the characterization is a way to give some plasticity to these ideas, to put like a name and a face to elements of human nature. And we may not get it right at first, because obviously we're creating like very monodimensional cartoons of people who have much more elaborate ideas, but it's a start, you know, like you just like have like that kind of I mean, like puppets is like a little bit like kids playing. You have like we play in order to have like we play in order to have a space where we can rehearse our actions in the future. So it's an arena where you can do some mistakes and can, if we were working with real actors, things would be really loaded and harder to move and fool around. But they're puppets, so they can get half of what they say wrong.
And they do.
Yes. Yes.
Can you speak a little bit about the decision to do puppets instead of maybe stop motion animation or any other type of comedy?
Well, this is very interesting because one of the things that interests me most is spontaneity. If you do computer-generated animation or stop motion, you have to get your script right at first, and then you have like a animatic, and from the animatic you start to do the animation. So that I like that the puppets are more autonomous and that you can shoot many scenes and each scene can be different. And that's pure spontaneity. I also realized something, that every puppeteer, every puppet behaves totally differently if they are controlled by a different puppeteer. So I even think that it may be interesting to see, like to shoot this documentary of this movie, trying different puppeteers for different puppets, and see how each character has different registers. So probably, like for instance, like the Marx we have now is like very grumpy, but there may be another kind of a register for Marx, no? So this is crucial because it talks about like the ontology of the puppet. It's something that, you know, like this is the very way that these guys have been used. So, you know, like often they want to attack Obama and then they say that he's Marxist or socialist. And what they are doing with that is just like using Marx's name as a puppet to scare people. And it's like, you know, just like a manipulation. So manipulation is very clearly what happens with puppeteering. You know, like you're manipulating a puppet. So I think that it's very interesting to see how these puppets will behave in a different way, because it's a little bit I'm not only interested in the idea, but the uses of the idea, and how the delivery of one idea and the packaging of one idea is as important as the idea itself. So if you become aware of this, if you become aware that how Marx and Smith have been used and misquoted and all that, you become more elaborate, and you realize that you have to think twice when these names are brought up. That, you know, like you have to find out for yourself and come up with your own reading of these historical materials, no?
Well, I would ask then how you've envisioned a gallery installation to support or elaborate on these ideas that seem a little bit more spontaneous and have a broader life. How does the gallery installation here really function for you as an extension of Baby Marx?
Well, I think that you enter a mental space because the library itself is a very interesting metaphor of what is this kind of idea of counterfactual logic, no? Like you could, we have made like a kind of myth or story where we have like a microwave oven that you take a book, you put it in the microwave, and you have like this intellectual defroster where you have like this thing which like a book comes to life in the form of the puppet. So it's like a kind of a children's tale and a little bit like a children's house. So we have, like all the feel of the exhibitions will be that you have, I mean, what I'm interested is in it's like this infantilization or like this kind of I mean, seemingly untractable themes and subjects like politics are suddenly because they're made like a kind of like a big toy. We can play around again with this, you know, so I think that what the scale effect does, you know, like suddenly like this kind of awkwardness, but of having like a building like shrinked, and then you suddenly become like a giant where you can play in this, like it becomes like this kind of like the solemnity of the library becomes like a playhouse. And I think that that's like a way to introduce a certain agency where you have the more proximity to these subjects. So that's a kind of that's what I think that will happen in the galleries, that you feel like in a playhouse.
Well, I have to say, this has been a real pleasure listening to you talk about the show.
It's been a pleasure working with you guys.
Speed protects you. Let's
yes.